G'day team, welcome to this week's episode of the Grey Man Podcast. I'm your host Harley Fox. Today's guest is Sergeant Andrew Jennings, a seasoned infantry leader with nearly 2 decades of service in the Australian Army. Andrew's name has surfaced recently in national headlines for sounding the alarm on a silent threat facing our soldiers, blast-related brain trauma. After years of exposure to overpressure from weapons like the Carl Gustaf, Andrew began noticing troubling signs like memory lapses, confusion, and a moment in 2021 that nearly ended his career when he forgot to open a live rifle range before the firing began. That incident wasn't just a mistake, it was a wake-up call. Andrew has since become a vocal advocate for the recognition of TBIs and CTE in military personnel. Conditions often overlooked, misunderstood, or dismissed as part of the job. His story isn't just personal, it's systemic. It raises an urgent question about how we train and protect and support those who serve. In this episode, we unpack the invisible injuries of war, the ones that don't bleed but they still break. Andrew brings raw honesty, lived experience, and a call to action for every veteran, commander, and policymaker in the ADF. If this conversation resonates with you guys, please help us keep amplifying voices like Andrew's. Subscribe to the podcast on your favourite platform and head over to the website, thegreyman.au, to grab yourself some merch. Every purchase helps us fuel the mission. Thanks for being here, guys. Let's get into it. For your situational awareness, I'm going to play first, before the podcast kicks off, the story that Andrew did on the ABC. So the first 10 minutes will be that story from the ABC, just to give you a bit of context on the condition and what Andrew's been going through, and then we'll kick off into the podcast. Thanks, guys. Enjoy. Cheers for being here. The Grey Man Podcast is a veteran-run platform dedicated to sharing authentic experiences from current and former service members. These stories are shared to foster connection, understanding, and support within the veteran community. Episodes may contain raw, emotionally charged content that some listeners may find distressing. Listener discretion is advised. The views and opinions expressed by guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect those of the Grey Man Podcast, its host, or affiliated partners. The Grey Man Podcast assumes no liability for any statements, opinions, or representations made by guests during interviews or discussions.
For almost 20 years, Andrew Jennings has loyally served the Australian Army.
Putting on the uniform for the first time was an amazing experience, to feel like you're part of something with a history that has deep roots in service.
But he knows his time is coming to an end.
It's heartbreaking. It really is, but I have hit a point where I can no longer provide effective service. I am unable to function at the level that would be required for my job.
His career took him around the world, training with the School of Infantry and deployed to Iraq. He trained young soldiers in the use of heavy weapons. That's when he became concerned about what the repeated blasts were doing to their brains.
So for me, a lot of blast exposures have been from primarily the 84mm Carl Gustaf.
The need to make every shot count becomes longer range and greater precision.
Firing a Carl Gustaf is not something soldiers easily forget.
Every time the round goes off, it's like getting punched in the head. I can feel the wave, the pressure wave going through all my sinus cavities. I had a headache at the end of the day. I was feeling nauseous, all the classic signs of concussion.
After years of exposure, Andrew Jennings started to notice his personality was changing.
Memory issues, anger issues was becoming a problem for me.
To document his symptoms, he began taking video diaries.
I've been trying to send a text message to my wife. I keep going into the phone and I keep scrolling through looking for my ex-wife's name. Also felt like I was getting lost on the way to work, catching the train. I was also disorientated around my house this morning. Not quite sure where I was.
Most of these people I've been working with for over 12 months. Some of them I've known for over my career for years. And I'm looking around the room and I am struggling to remember their names.
will frequently forget basic things. I get disorientated. I can get lost driving to work. I don't recognise my wife. I don't recognise her.
What do you mean when you say you can't recognise your wife?
I will sit there and I'll look at her, and it'll take me a moment or two to remember who she is, and then it'll take me another moment or two to remember her name.
Layout. We've got the briefing area, which is where we are currently. Third detail.
Andrew trained young soldiers to use heavy weapons like the Carl Gustav at ranges like this. Here, 2 operators are learning to use it. Right next to them is a third person, the safety supervisor, a job Andrew often did. This is the view from their position. This angle shows how close they are to the blast. The pressure of the blast wave hits the safety supervisor's vest.
The blast over pressure essentially creates a shearing force through the whole body. It's so powerful that Australia actually has regulations that limit the firing to 7 rounds per day.
This footage provided by the Australian Army shows the safety measures in place on the range as soldiers carefully log their blast exposure. The responsibility to keep personnel safe sits with this man, the Chief of Army.
In Australia, we have made sure that we have, to the best of our ability, so far as reasonably practicable, reduced the risk in training.
There are limits on how many rounds can be fired a day, including for the Carl Gustav. And so what's the limit for the safety staff in a 24-hour period?
The maximum is 7, and I think for some of the other rounds, like high explosive, it's only 4.
And you were doing?
46 in 36 hours.
Why were you doing so many?
We had a lot of ammunition to get through. The training had to happen. We were also short on staff, and that's a huge issue.
We need to make sure that those limits that are put in place for the health and well-being of our people are understood. They are absolutely articulated in the instructions for the conduct of those ranges.
But would you accept like those limits are not being followed or haven't been followed properly always?
Of course I would accept that. We don't live in a perfect world.
Andrew Jennings is trying to continue a normal routine while grappling with his declining health. Doctors have told him he has a traumatic brain injury, likely due to blast exposure, but there's no diagnostic test on a living person that can definitively prove a brain injury is caused by blast.
Unfortunately, the worst part about a lot of these issues with blast overpressure is it will not be found until post-mortem.
He's signed up to donate his brain to research. Since 730's first story on this topic last year, the Australian Veterans Brain Bank has been overwhelmed with support.
And so we're starting the external examination of the brain.
They've now had more than 450 veterans pledge their brains to research after their deaths.
It's got bilateral frontal atrophy, so it looks like it's lost some volume.
What they're looking for is a unique pattern of damage caused by repeated low-level blast exposure.
The definitive diagnosis requires it to be looked at under the microscope. Interface astroglial scarring, or IAS, was described by the US Department of Defense Brain Bank. In all the donors that they found this distinctive pattern of scarring or gliosis, they all had a history of exposure to blasts over a significant period of time.
6 veterans' brains have been donated so far. Some died by suicide. Now scientists have found the first evidence of interface astroglial scarring in an Australian.
I can't really say a lot at this stage, but certainly that donor did have exposure to blasts over a long period of time. Everyone I've spoken to in the neuropathology community understands that there is brain injury associated with blasts that needs to be actioned.
Do you now accept that Australian soldiers have received brain injuries from the low-level repeated blasts from their own weapons in training?
I've always accepted that. I think it's a fact. It's a fact that we learnt more about over time. We've been following this and learning about it since 2010. I'm really keen to make sure that we're doing everything we possibly can. One, to prevent illness or injury wherever we can. And two, where someone is injured or becomes ill, that they get the right and the proper treatment that they need.
Paul Scanlon is a former Special Forces officer who now advocates for soldiers exposed to blast. He's been meeting with military and government to push for action.
100% they're not doing enough. They're too slow. It's a leadership issue. You could do something tomorrow. I respect that they are trying to do something, and I get that feedback from people inside the Army, but it's way too slow. I've had calls where people have essentially indicating they are committing suicide, and I've had to call the police to go and intervene.
What's it like to get those calls?
Yeah, this is what... deeply, deeply distressing. Yeah, these people, they don't feel heard. They don't feel looked after.
The Veteran Suicide Royal Commission noted the links between blast exposure and suicide and recommended Defence start a program to investigate the issue.
I'm responsible for the brain injury program as the lead for the Department of Defence, and I'm very happy that we've got that very clear direction to focus time, effort and resources on this matter.
He's directed an expert advisory panel to develop a plan to cognitively baseline soldiers and track their blast exposure over their career. I've spoken to lots of veterans who've struggled with their brain health linked to blast exposure. They feel like the Army's known this has been an issue for over a decade and not enough has been done. What's your message to those soldiers?
I think the issue that they've felt let down about is probably twofold. One, we haven't moved fast enough. I'm doing everything I can to shift that along. But I want to make sure we're doing the right things. Secondly, it's been very difficult for them to be able to get a diagnosis and to link that to their service. And that's why we're working with DVA to make sure that we are sort of smoothing out that transition. If you're still serving, then you can get help.
For now, Andrew Jennings is trying to work out what his future will look like. Last week, he was told he was medically unfit for duty.
I've had diagnosis of PTSD, major depressive disorder, persistent suicidality. That saw me admitted to the Alfred Critical Care Unit.
You're still serving. What does it mean for you to sort of speak out about this?
I'm expecting a lot of pushback on this. My career is over anyway. I physically cannot continue to serve despite my desire to do so.
And why is it so important to you that you do speak out?
Because this is an issue that is affecting a huge numbers of defence members. It's affecting me, it's affecting my wife, it affects my family. And this is not just affecting those people nearer to me, but it's affecting my peers, it's affecting those people that are coming through below me. It is a big problem.
Yeah, I've sort of binged my way through about 50% of your podcasts, mate. So
Oh, did you?
got a rough idea about what I'm getting myself into.
Who's your favourite? Who was your favourite?
Actually, I don't have a favourite. Everyone brings their own unique story to it, although there is a reasonably common thread across it, and sort of everyone's experience with defence seems to be about the same.
Yeah, true. You think you're the only one until you start talking to other people?
Oh, 100%. Like, the crazy thing when I went on the ABC, the number of people that reached out to me and were like, hey, this is something I'm experiencing was crazy.
Yeah.
Like absolutely crazy. Like the number of my peers that are going, that all now makes so much sense, was just absolutely crazy. And I've had a few officers that I worked for, including a couple of senior officers, reach out discreetly and say, hey, fucking well done.
Yeah, well. You're just on your way out now.
Yeah, I'll be. So we got a stay of execution until 4th of February. It was supposed to be finished up 25th of this month, but there's a few things that need to be in place for medical support with DVA before I get out.
Oh yeah, HIA.
Yeah, held in abeyance until February.
Yeah, it's a weird one, held in abeyance.
Yep.
Cool. Welcome, mate. Thanks for being here.
No dramas.
So you've watched a few potties now, so you understand the format. Yeah. So where'd you grow up, man?
Grew up all over Australia. It's actually probably the best answer for that one. I was born in Sydney, moved to Darwin in like 1980. Darwin across to Nhulunbuy, for most people won't know where that is, and it's 600 k's due east of Darwin. Like it's as far east as you can go from Darwin without going into like Grid Island or the Gulf of Carpentaria. So it's a bauxite mining town. So I did all my primary schooling in the Northern Territory. So yeah, that was sort of where I grew up, and then moved to Victoria in 1980. So it was an interesting experience, sort of bouncing around the place. Like, not a defence brat. My father worked for what they called nowadays Air Services Australia. Before that, they were the Civil Aviation Authority, and then Department of Transport. So his job was he was a flight service officer, so providing radio traffic information, tracking aircraft that are flying visual flight rules. So these guys are not flying in controlled airspace, so he's just sort of tracking where they are. So if one of them misses a check-in or doesn't get to the airport, doesn't get to the other end, they can start looking for them, and that they also know what weather conditions are coming, etc., which is kind of important when you're not relying on radar and other signals to pre-GPS and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah. How'd you go with moving around the place all the time?
Yeah, sort of moving around the place wasn't too much of a bother. Most kids are reasonably resilient. You sort of go in and move into, and particularly in the Territory, it's like everyone's sort of used to people coming in and coming out. There's
all the mining and stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Particularly when we were in Nhulunbuy, because it was a bauxite mining town, like aluminium ore. So we would just came in and we were just like, yep, next bunch of new kids. So that was sort of that sort of experience. So
it's funny when they say that we try and avoid it with our kids these days, is just try and keep them in the same school with the same friends. But then you look back, and I guess it goes one way or the other. Either you find that you become really resilient and you're good at making new friends and all that sort of stuff, or you hate it because you're always the new kid and you sort of get picked on and stuff.
Yeah, you sort of get used. That's one of the things, like you get used to it, and you're the new kid until the next new kid arrives. And yeah, it's one of those things. It's probably harder moving because you've got to say goodbye to all those people that you've known. But you move into a new school. And it's like, okay, cool. I'm the new kid here, and like I moved to.
Here we go again.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. You're like, oh yeah, I know this routine again. Yeah, so you sort of deal with that.
Yeah, and Sydney was the next stop, did you say?
So I born in Sydney, Sydney to Darwin, Darwin to Nullarbor, and Nullarbor to Melbourne. I sort of identify as a Melburnian by virtue of the fact it's where I've lived the longest.
Yeah, well.
Like I lived here for 20 years before posting back. So I always sort of classed myself as a Melburnian. I did all my high school education at here in Melbourne. So
That was, what sort of stuff did you get up to in high school?
high school was sort of interesting. I went to private school kids, so went to Essendon Grammar, which is famous for producing three things: a celebrity chef, which is Curtis Stone, a whole bunch of AFL footballers, like Dustin Fletcher, Adam Merrington, Scott West, to name sort of some that are about my vintage. Like Dustin was a year ahead of me, and I think Merrington was 2 years below me. Scotty West was like 3-4 years ahead of me.
You play?
No, I played hockey more so than football. Like we'd play football, we'd do football or Gaelic football or something like that for PT, and I'd get into trouble for hip and shouldering a few people, and particularly when they played for the first 18 and they ended up going off the field with concussion. So that was sort of interesting. I sort of did all that. I played hockey at school. I played one of the other crazy sports I got introduced into was underwater hockey. So
Underwater hockey?
Yeah, weird sport developed by Royal Navy clearance divers. Played with a lead puck on the bottom of the pool. So
you just dive down and whack it and go get air and then come back and do it again?
With a snorkel and fins, you dive down. Then you'd want to push the puck into a 3-meter long tray at either end of the swimming pool across like 6 lanes. And,
50 meter?
Yeah, across a 50 meter, but like you're playing
side to side.
Side to side as opposed to end to end.
Yeah.
So you're doing that with snorkel and fins and stuff like that. So it was not the world's greatest spectator sport. But a lot of fun to play though.
Yeah, did some big screens with cameras under the water.
Yeah, did that. I was rowing and stuff like that. Spent a lot of my time trying to make Australian rowing teams and things like that. My school was not a rowing school. I went Essendon Grammar because it was sort of AFL footballers. School's famous for producing AFL footballers, Curtis Stone, and the Moran family from the Melbourne underworld.
Okay.
Yeah,
primary school kids. There you go.
Yeah, it's like people sort of don't realise that like Jason Moran was shot at one of the school's football clinics, like in front of his kids.
I remember that on the Underworld show.
Yeah, they were running a school football clinic, and he assumed that they wouldn't hit him in public in front of his kids. Unfortunately, he assumed wrong because they knew that was the only time they could get him. So so that was sort of me, like at high school, playing sports and just generally.
Any jobs?
Like I'm a bit weird. Like, so most people join up straight out of school or not very long after. I joined up at 31. So I decided that I would join up. So prior to doing that, I primarily worked in hospitality, majority as a crowd controller or bouncer. The politically correct term is crowd controller. So I did that for about 13 years, bouncing between like either being a bouncer or managing venues or all that sort of stuff. So had those sorts of skills. So I worked my way around Melbourne as well, working in different places, some of the more infamous nightclubs like, well, not infamous, but like Revolver and a few others, that you sort of most people would know. I was working there when they first decided they were going to do the 24-hour thing, which was always an experience. You know,
Was it dangerous?
Yeah, it was. Like when I started working in 1996 was 3-4 years after they introduced licensing into Victoria. So Victoria's like the first state to start licensing security guards because they had some huge problems with
licensing you to carry firearms.
No, like to actually be a bouncer, you've got to, in Victoria, you had to be, and I think most states are the same now. You've actually got to be a licensed to be a bouncer or a security guard. Yeah. So they got us. They introduced that, and when they did that, I think overnight they cleared out 60% of the workforce because you can't hold a security license if you've got a drugs conviction or an assault conviction, and certain other criminal convictions would get you excluded from being a security guard.
Yeah, what most people turn to when they've got all those sort of convictions.
It's not one of those jobs that attracts that kind of people, and it's like I sort of wound up in that by mistake. I was studying at uni. I was doing was it computer science and rowing at the time. And I'm like, I need money. I need to do something. What's a job that I can do? And I'm like, oh, I'll get into hospitality. A mate of mine started off as a busboy at one of the nightclubs. I'm like, yeah, cool. I could go and do that. Suddenly discovered that I could get to the flights a lot faster than a lot of the security guards I was working with. They're like, hey, have you thought about getting your license? And I'm like, yeah, that sounds like a much easier job, just standing on a post or standing on the door.
Standing on the, give you the confidence to run towards a fight.
Yeah, and that was it. Like, having that sort of dickhead gene where, oh, there's a fight going on, instead of standing back and watching it, going towards it to break it up.
That's just something that's born into you. No reason for it.
Oh, yeah. I think I've got looking back, I've probably got a reasonably large death wish or gone quite comfortable with getting hurt. So you sort of get into it. We got into that and wound up doing, a lot of crowd control, working on doors, stuff like that. So you move towards a fight. And the other one became with that was sort of working out that I could talk most people out the door. So you'd walk up and start talking to them and stuff like that. I remember one of the venues I was working at, the Northcote Social Club, one of the guys there comes up to me. He's like, you've got all the biggest dickhead fucking mates in the world. I'm like, what the fuck do you mean? And he's like, oh, all these guys that are coming up and they're shaking your hand and they're hugging you and all this sort of stuff, they're all the people I'm having problems with. And I'm like, yeah, do you notice when I start hugging them and I'm shaking their hands and stuff like that, they leave fairly shortly afterwards? And he's like, oh, yeah. I'm like, that's me getting them out the door, and they're quite happy to shake my hand and hug me as I'm taking them out the door because I'm being able to communicate with them. So,
where do you reckon those de-escalation skills came from?
I think part of it's experience. I grew up like my parents are sort of high functioning alcoholics. So, my dad being a flight service officer, like he needed to be able to communicate on a radio, process information quite quickly. My mum was a nurse, but they would just, drink cask wine until they passed out and stuff like that. So as a kid, you learn very quickly to negotiate your way out of situations because, drunk people, alcoholics, not necessarily the most reasonable people. My parents were both shift workers. One stage, I think mum was working for the Royal Flying Doctors. So she'd be on call, she'd be working nights and stuff like that. And my dad would be same deal. He'd be working shifts as well. So having to negotiate with them about, why you've woken them up and all that sort of stuff. And, when they're hungover and things like that, it's not necessarily the easiest thing to do. And like, back in the 80s, it was a case of you just get whacked and and told to shut up. And then it's like, if you think that's bad, I'll really give you something to cry about.
Yep.
Yeah, like most people can sort of relate to that one. So, you learn to.
You think that's where your running towards danger came from as well? You're not real scared of it?
Yeah, not. I wouldn't say that scared of it. Like you come out of something and go, "Oh shit, I probably shouldn't have done that," or that could have gone a lot worse than it did. But you sort of know that like things will wind up, things will spike very quickly, and then they'll wind up just as quickly. So you'll get that massive surge, and it's like, you're like, yeah, okay, cool. I can sort of deal with this. It's one of those. For me, it was just one of those things I just did. And then, which made, particularly when I was bouncing, I started working with the guys. I was at 99, a couple of guys like one of my good mates, Gerald, is working with him, and he's like, oh yeah, I do BJJ, and I'm like, oh yeah. He's like, yeah, come on and try it. And I'm like, I've just watched him choke somebody out, and put them to sleep, and it's like, that is so much better than punching people. That is so much better. I'm not going to get
99. That would have been the real early days of BJJ.
Oh yeah, it was. So I went down to Hangar 4 at Essendon Airport to start training. Hangar 4 doesn't exist anymore, and the people that were there were like, what's it? I'm just trying to think of the names that were there. John Simons, Dave Hart, Big Dave Christic, Gerald. John Will was the head coach for it. John, well, I sent you a thing the other day. He got he's the first Australian coral belt. Like he's been.
Yeah. I'll flash that up on the screen.
Yeah, he's a the first Australian. He's also one of the Dirty Dozen, so the first 12 non-Brazilians to get their black belt.
Oh, true.
So he's
pretty impressive.
Yeah, and so you look at most of the Australian black belts, like the old school guys, they've all trained under him or trained with with someone that's trained under him. Like John Simon's a good example. He's worked with like people that are trained under him are Craig Jones, Lachlan Giles. So you start looking at big hitters, BJJ royalty, Dave Hart, like little Dave Hart. He runs Dominance here in Melbourne. He spent a lot of time training Adele, who's the ADCC strawweight champion. She's also the Australian that fought recently in the CJI. So she's there's some pretty decent people that have sort of trained under that sort of genre. But yeah, I did that, and I'm got my blue belt in I think 2000, and been a perennial blue belt ever since, because work gets in the way and all this sort of stuff, bouncing around Australia and stuff. You start again.
You started a new gym, you got to prove yourself again.
Yeah, that fun.
I just trained last night, and I am hurting. When you have time off as a blue belt and you go back, there's no mercy. Like white belts are trying to prove something, and the higher belts think that they can go a bit harder because you've got experience.
Yeah, that's the thing. Yeah, and the other one is you come back, like you turn up to a new gym with a coloured belt, and particularly a blue belt, and everyone's like, "Oh yeah, blue belt. Okay, cool. Let's just see how much they actually know." And, and yeah, like you said, the white belts will go at you because they're like, "Oh, this is a new blue belt. Let's prove ourselves." And then you've got the other blue belt.
Yeah. See if we can tap him in.
Yeah, so on and so forth. And it's like, I remember going back onto the mat and dominance when I posted down here in 23. went back on the mat and I'm like grappling with people and getting smashed, etc. So like, oh yeah, so yeah, what brings you to dominance? And I'm like, I'm coming back here. Like I've trained in all the different locations that they've been in with Dave, and they're like, huh? I'm like, yeah. Like you start talking to them, Dave's like, yeah, we used to train together like 17, 18, 20 years ago. And all these blue belts and brown belts are like, like turn up, my blue belt's faded and stuff. Like,
yeah, it's because it's been in the cupboards for so long. Not bringing it home as well.
Yeah. Oh, exactly. What, it's 25 years old now. So it's like
falling apart.
Well, the funny one is like you sort of say that there's a tradition with a lot of the guys that have trained under John Will, and particularly the Machados. Like, if they are deserving enough, they will get given the belt by the person who's grading them. So John Will, if you ever see photos of him as a black belt, he's got this really long black belt that hangs down to his knees, or he had this really long black belt that hung down to his knees. It was faded. It was almost white, because when he got graded to black belt, Hegan Machado gave him his black belt.
Yeah, right.
So
cool.
Yeah, so it's like this black belt's already 10, 15 years old before it gets given to and
to get him, and then the coach gets a new one.
Yeah, exactly. The coach takes the new one. You've got the old one. Like one of the guys I used to train with when he got graded to blue belt, John Will gave him his blue belt, and he's like, I can never go on a competition again because if I turn up with this blue belt that is ancient, it's tatty, it's almost white, everyone's just going to sit there and go, if you've been a blue belt for decades, and he's just going to get punished.
You'd have to frame those ones, I reckon, and then just buy yourself a new one.
Yeah.
You do any other martial arts styles while you're there?
I did a little bit of karate as a primary school / high school kid. Did that sort of stuff. Did a little bit of shoot fighting as well, sort of like a mongrel hybrid of sort of wrestling, kickboxing, etc. But just switch more into jiu-jitsu. Unfortunately, I stopped competing because every third competition I'd get an injury. So
that's the problem, I had Jesse Stevenson on the other day, who's a black belt.
Yeah.
And I was like, how do you manage like severe injuries and jiu-jitsu? He's like, oh, just tap early and control the situation. I was like, yeah, it's easy for a black belt to say.
Yeah, 100%. And like I remember watching Adele do a reel on her Insta page, and she's like, we're coming up, it was last year for Halloween. She's like, we're coming up to Halloween, and she's like, I decided to dress as the scariest thing I could find. So she's turned up to the mat that where was it? Absolute Jiu-Jitsu, with Lachlan Giles on the mat. She's turned up dressed as a white belt.
As your white belt. She's pretty scary.
Yeah, absolutely. Like that. White belts are like the high level white belts, like the 4 stripers and things like that. The guys that are about to grade to blue, no problems. But your 1 and 2 stripers and your standard white belts, they don't understand everything, and they always think they've got that point to prove.
Yeah, 100%. Yanking things and twisting and turning in ways they shouldn't be.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I'm talking to Jesse. It was probably one of the reasons I've decided to get back into it. Just, try and be a bit more mindful and cautious. And like last night, someone was about to put me in a bow and arrow, and I just tapped as he was doing it. I was like, yeah, that's far enough.
Yeah, I got C4, 5, C6, 7 fused late 23, which I'm like, oh yeah, I'll be able to go back to jiu-jitsu and talk to the neurosurgeon. He's like, no way, don't do it. Like you get too much deliberate pressure being put on your neck, it's going to cause you massive problems. I'm like, yeah, okay, cool. I'd rather not wind up with potential paralysis or having massive issues like that. So
yeah, that's it. You find the thing that still gives you fulfillment without risking extreme injuries.
yeah, and that's the thing. Like, I know there's a few guys around. There's a couple of guys at Dominance that are grappling with fused spines, but I think it's more for them. It's more lumbar, and it's not multiple level. So, just like, I think the worst injury I had was my jaw getting dislocated. That was not a lot of fun.
Oh, geez.
Was at a tournament run by John Donahue, and I'm sitting in at 110 kilos, grappling against guys in white belts that are like 130, 140 kilos, the big, heavy, like super heavy dudes. And I was like,
110 kilos. Don't look that big.
I'm currently stepping on the scales about 114. So,
yeah.
Yeah.
What's the accolades behind your head there?
That one's they used to give you a NATO non-article when you got a NATO non-article 5. You got a certificate from NATO when you went to Afghanistan. So, okay. And then a few other ones like certificates of appreciation, so commendation, that sort of stuff.
Nice.
And I've got my promotion certificate sitting up in front of the computers. So,
awesome.
Yeah.
So 31, you decided to stop being a bouncer and join the green team.
Yeah,
sort of sparked that little life change.
Partly economic conscript. Like in the 13 years I've been a bouncer, the money hadn't changed. Like what I used to think was great money, particularly being paid cash in hand and things like that, was not so good after 13 years. Like people are still paying the same rate. So it got more and more not worth it. Also, I would start work at like 5, 6 o'clock at night, not finishing up till 2, 3, or later in the morning. Yeah. Rinse, repeat.
It takes a toll, yeah.
Yeah. That sort of, my ex-wife rang DFR and I'm like, I've always wanted to do this, so I thought I'd do it. Plus also the realization, like being a bouncer, the longer you stay in the job, or a combination of 3 things will happen to you. You're going to get charged, because if you don't manage your temper correctly, you're going to hurt somebody and you'll probably end up getting charged out of that. You're going to get seriously injured. And when I left, ice was really starting to become a problem in Melbourne. So, people are highly unpredictable when they haven't slept for 3, 4 days. They're on, crystal meth, just they're paranoid. They're all those sorts of problems. It's a pretty horrific drug to see people on and to deal with people that are on. I also understand from some people it's also quite hard to break that habit too. Which is,
did you see some violent episodes?
Yeah, I saw some violent things. Like, was it 2 or 3 weeks out from joining the army, I got my nose broken by an ice head when I was doing more cop stuff. So walked him out the door, no problems. Then he decided that he was going to take a swing because he wanted to have the last word. And he took a swing. He landed. He broke my nose. I didn't go down, which was a little bit surprising for him. And then next thing, he found himself on the ground being held down, waiting for the cops to turn up. So,
jiu-jitsu.
Yep. And that was locked up, put on the ground, locked up, and just like that was sort of 2 weeks out and ringing up DFR going, I've just had my nose broken. Is that going to be a problem? And they're like, nah, we'll still take you. So yeah, it was sort of that sort of thing.
So what was that, like 2008?
2008.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, so I joined up in 2008. I like initially rang, or my ex-wife rang DFR because she was studying and she was thinking about going.
She wanted you out of the house.
Yeah, well, she was thinking about, she was studying law and she was thinking about like, how can I get somebody to pay for my law degree? So she decided to try.
Oh, for herself.
Yeah, for herself, and then
right.
I sort of like, well, it's something I've always wanted to do because my great grandfather on my father's side was a World War One veteran. I only ever met him like as a very young kid. So he was a member of, was it the 58th Battalion here, which is a Victorian-based battalion in the First World War. And he reached the lofty heights of Lance Sergeant, which I didn't realise was a thing. There was also a Lewis gunner, which I think my obsession with machine guns and anti-tank and all that sort of stuff, direct, and going into direct fire support weapons might be genetic.
So you joined as a grunt?
Yeah, well, actually, it was DRS, like direct recruitment, or SFDRS, Special Forces Direct Recruitment Scheme, in 08, which is a great con for getting some guys that are
super fit to become grunts.
Yeah, super fit and also super with a really high aptitude to become grunts. I don't know how I got through. I don't know how I got through the whole process, but I did. No, I didn't. So, like, I went through, going through your, so what do they call it these days? Use day, Use day or Joe's day or whatever it was.
U day, yeah.
Yeah, I went going through that. Went and did the aptitude test, etc. Like, walked in and the recruiter, who was a RAF, he's like, "Oh, what do you want to do?" And I'm like, "What can I do?" Because I hadn't seen the results. And he's gone, "Oh," and gives me the results. He goes, "Oh, you've unlocked all 180 jobs in the ADF." I'm like, "Okay, I'll just can I see the list?" Dad, "Oh yeah, commandos. That looks good. I'll do that."
Nice.
So yeah, I went in sort of no real idea about what it was going to be. I knew about 4RR. I knew about one commando. So as I went through that pathway, so did Kapuka, did School of Infantry, then went to do the Accelerated Infantry program. So like, I think we marched in between the two platoons at Kapuka. There was a total of 60 DRS guys. And that was pretty, like, a huge number, and we were all sort of going from there straight across to School of Infantry. We had a number of drop off through Kapuka.
That was the egos in that platoon.
Huge. Absolutely huge. I think only of the 60 of us that marched through, the guys who got through, who actually got picked up, I think was either 3 or 6 that got picked up first attempt.
Yeah, right.
From the total number that marched in. The rest of us wound up getting palmed off to battalions.
Do you have the choice of, if you go direct entry, do you have the choice if you fail to pull out, or it's like you sign the line and now you're infantry?
Yeah, so at least when I went through, it was a case of you had to have infantry as your second choice. You couldn't choose anything else. So you go through because you come out with your 343 ECN at the end of it. So you are a qualified infantryman by the time you get to the end of your infantry training. And commandos, even though they're a separate ECN, they also sit within the Royal Australian Infantry anyway. So same with the SAS, they are still technically part of infantry.
So even if you fail the commando selection, you've still got to fulfill your ROSO.
Yeah. Although
as infantry.
Yeah, although there was, I think there was about 20 of the 60 that were chocos. So they actually have to sign a CFTS to do the whole training, because they come through do the full-time Kapuka, they do the full-time infantry course. They go through and do the accelerated infantry, and then they go on to selection and then do the Rio cycle, etc. So that's or at least that was the progress for them. And it was a case of, you went infantry if you weren't successful. I think the Chocos had a bit of a different thing. Like if they weren't successful, they would go and see out the rest of their ROSO working with either one commando company or two commando company. And then they could make up their mind as to what they were going to do after that, whether they were going to attempt again or whether they were, you know what, I'll hang up my...
I'll just do my Tuesday nights.
Yeah. I'll just do my Saturdays and Sundays.
Yeah.
So that's
cool. So you went, who'd you get posted to?
So I got to all the way through AIT, and then I was having some fairly major dramas with my ex-wife. She was complaining about me being away a lot, because I think
she didn't get in.
No, she didn't. Yeah, she didn't get in. Like I was literally, we were a single income family on trainee wages. So that's not a great way to be. Not a great way to be, which is fine. Like I'm member with dependent under company or whatever they call it nowadays. So I lived on. I was in the training establishment. I didn't pay for rent. I didn't pay for food. So that's all covered. Didn't go out on weekends because I couldn't afford to go out. So I'd spend all weekend on base on my own, just living in the lines, like the depressing School of Infantry lines. And then and then I pulled off just before the barrier test, as part of the accelerated infantry course, and then posted to 3RAR. The wing sergeant major was awesome. Like, we're getting pushed hard through the AIT, but like we had a lot to learn, and almost everything was broken down into a teaching point, and there was always repercussions for our actions. He was really trying to push our abilities for attention to detail, particularly when fatigued. So making sure that we did things. One of his funniest punishments was one of the guys didn't turn up with a notebook. So he sat there and gave this brief, and then got to the end of it and picked one of the guys out of the crowd, out of the group, and said, right, how many words do you write down? He's like, sits there and counts it, and he's like, 85. 85. And he's like, right, okay, how many people are here? So we started multiplying the number of people, the number of words by the number of people. And then that became our punishment, was we had to do that many push-ups because we didn't make sure that everyone had a notebook and pen when we went to this brief. Like, it's not that person's responsibility, it's the team's responsibility that everyone has the right equipment to go and do a mission. And where we were living at the School of Infantry, because that's where we were doing the AITs, was where the newer buildings are right next to the mess at Singleton. And there was a whole bunch of white stim-outable huts that we were living out of. So we had to walk to these, I think the toilets are still there, the brown brick toilets that are just behind where Capion Platoon, Samashon, Kokoda, like where all the new platoons are, the newer buildings there. That's where we used to live. So we'd have to walk to the toilets and we'd have to go past his office. So what he made us do was find bricks and then lay out the number of push-ups that we owed him on bricks by this path. So anytime he went to the toilet, anytime we went to the toilet or had a shower or anything like that, we knew how many push-ups that we had to do to owe him.
Pay your debt.
Yep, pay our debt. But the other proviso was we couldn't sit there and do it in one hit. It could only ever be done as part of PT under the supervision of a PTI, and the PTI would tell him how many we could take off.
Long stretch.
So when you're sitting there and you're walking past the number, which was like in excess of 3,000 push-ups, you're like, this is never going to change.
Did you get them done?
Yeah. No, they never got done because every time, like we had some other guys that were coming from other corps join us at the School of Infantry, and then over Christmas leave they all went back to their unit, and then they came back to us, and so well, they went back to the home location, and they came back to us, and they came back later than we did, so they missed this brief, and we stupidly, because it's like, oh yeah, they're experienced soldiers, they know what they're doing. They're not what they're doing. We didn't warn them. That's like, hey, when you go and speak to the wing sergeant major, make sure you've got your notebook and pen on you, because he will grill you for it. He will grill you for it, and we will pay the consequences. And we weren't thinking of the group, and it was the whole point, was we needed to think of the group and the team. We were just thinking of ourselves. No one bothered saying anything to these guys. So when they turned up, and it's like, oh right, grab your notebooks and pens, and it's like, we're in civvy, sir. Yeah, it's like, I don't care.
Another one. It's his favourite punishment.
100% was his favourite punishment. And but yeah, for the guys that continued on to selection and stuff like that, it was actually pretty good for them. They had him as he ran the selection as well. So not only did he put them through the AIT program, he also was there running them through selection, etc. And then a few of them wound up with him as their company sergeant major when they wound up at 4RR or 2 Commando. Actually changed over to 2 Commando whilst we were going through training. So he was like, it was the devil they knew. So they knew what they had to deal with. So that was fine. But yeah, I pulled the pin because of family reasons. And then I went to 3RR. It's like, I was going back to the sergeant major, and I'm like, hey, sir, fucking, this is it, blah, blah, blah. I did up the minute, and he's like, where do you want to go? And I'm like, I want to go to 3RR. I want to go to 3RR. He's like, you can pick any unit. I'm like, yeah, I want to go to 3RR. He goes, like, it's the parachute battalion. I'm like, yeah, it's a parachute. So you're going to have to jump out of airplanes. I'm like, yeah, I'm happy to do that. I'm happy to volunteer to jumps, because you had to sign the volunteer to jump status to go to 3RR. It was not, back in those days when they were still parachute, it was not really a battalion that you got sent to. It was a battalion you had to choose to or volunteer to go to, because if you didn't sign the volunteer to jump status, then you couldn't post into the battalion. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, yep, cool, I'll go there. So I posted from there to Holsworthy, just as a digger. And you I remember listening to, can't remember who it was that you had that was DRS as well.
It would have been Brownie, Tom Brown.
Listening to him, and I'm just like, I'm like, yep, that checks out with everybody I got there. And I was like, yep, because we'd been fed this line about, we are smarter, we are better, we are fitter, we are stronger than, the average recruits that are coming through. Yes, we are. But when you get into a battalion, no, you're not. There are some absolutely fantastic guys, like hugely fit, hugely smart guys who are in in the battalions, and yeah, you get re-educated fairly quickly, for the most part. The other one was turning up to 3RR, which had a huge reputation for, keeping guys, dead ground counselling, and what happened at the shat stayed at the shat. And for those people that are unsure of what the shat is the chateau, or the 3RR boozer. And it traces its history back to Woodside, and it's an infamous venue. If you look up the Shat or Grinspoon and their worst gig ever, they got pelted with rum cans when they played at the Shat.
That's dedication. Throwing full drinks.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, you kept your mouth shut. You didn't say anything. Like, lids were very quickly put in their place. I didn't cop a lot of that sort of stuff when I got there. I wound up with some pretty good platoon sergeants and some pretty good corporals that were in the place, and it was just a case of I wanted to work, I wanted to learn. Still had a bit of an attitude because I'd been fed that BS that we get going through the whole AIT program. And it's the same stuff that they get fed going through, officer training. You guys are smarter than the average. You're smarter. This is the reason why you've been selected to be here, etc., etc. And when you're fed that the whole way through, you believe it. And it's like, oh yeah, cool. We are smarter. We are better than everybody else. So you sort of wind up going through that, but getting put back into a battalion, and like the reality check that comes with that, particularly when you're seeing guys that are, smashing out PT like these guys are flying around the place with serious weights on them. Watching the guys from bellies, doing PT, running with Mag 58s and the 84s. Watching the recon guys, just blitzing PT, and you're like, okay, these guys are seriously fit. They are seriously strong. And then, wandering past them and going, hang on, you guys still smell like rum. The realization that these guys are capable of functioning at a very high level while hungover like fuck.
Yeah, there's lots of reels and memes about that sort of stuff. How do you feel being a 31, 32-year-old with all the kids? They treat you like your dad. You were their dad.
A little bit. Like I said, I missed a lot of the sort of other stuff that came in with, like, guys trying to stand over you and things like that. That sort of very
initiation stuff.
Yeah, well, I missed a lot of it because I was older, married, reasonably larger guy, also could handle myself and wasn't going to back down. So you sort of got left alone a fair bit. And some of the stuff...
Pick their battles.
Yeah, pick your battles. And also, I know when to stand up and when to stand up for myself and when to back down. It's like, okay, this is the time I need to keep my mouth shut and just let whatever's going to go through. And then... but some of the younger guys getting like paranoid about, I remember one of the corporals from one of the other platoons getting all the new guys together, like this is like 6 months in or 7 months in, and he's like, right, there's like 8, 9 new guys. He's like, right, you guys are all buying, the three of you guys are buying rum cans. The three of you three are buying beer. You three are buying Jack Daniels or Jim Beam cans. You're buying a case each. They're like, oh fuck, it's expensive. And it's like, get down there. It's like, I'm not fucking buying a case. And it's like, cunts fucking, they give in and they buy the cases. They buy the cases because they've been pressured into doing it. And the boys are like, right, thanks. And then just hand them beers, and it's like, this is how we get to know you. Like, yeah, okay, yes, it is expensive because you're going to pay for a whole case of rum cans, or you're going to pay for a whole case of beer or whatever. But you get to drink it as well. It's not there for the rest of the platoon and the rest of the company to drink. It's so that, sit down and have a beer and talk. Like, tell us about yourselves. Like, get to know us, get to know each other. I think that's actually, to be honest, that's something that I think that has sort of disappeared a little bit out of the army. Like, we talk about and everyone carries on about defence's drinking culture and all this sort of stuff. And I think we've actually lost a lot of the drinking culture.
Yeah, swung too far the other way.
Yeah, the Shat still has that reputation a bit. It's open or it used to be open most afternoons, even when I posted back there in 2020. But what we do have is a reporting culture. Like, you listen for the younger guys and girls that are listening to this, like, listen to your CSM stories, listen to your RSM stories, listen to some of the senior officer stories. They were loose. They were loose. It's just that they didn't report anything. So if there was an alcohol-related incident, it was just, it's the boys being boys. They're blowing off some steam. They're getting drunk on base. They've punched on. No one's seriously hurt. They've sorted their differences out. Let's just carry on with business.
I remember I was working at Corporate Boxer Fight Gym up here, and we got hired to host a fight show at 6RL. And so we brought in all our own fighters, and a lot of the boys had fights, and then all 6 were just in the bleachers. And then, like, halfway through the show, there was chairs getting thrown and dudes punching on in the crowd. And because we were all trained fighters, we're like, do you want us to break this up? And the chain of command were like, nah, let him go. He's blowing off some steam.
Yeah, 100%. Like, that was the thing. Like, yeah, let him blow off steam on base. Like, worst case scenario is, particularly at Holsworthy, we got one HSB just up the road. It's 2Ks up the road. We can carry them up there if we need to, or we can get the duty driver to put them in the car and take them up there. Although, like, doing guard at 3RR in Holsworthy when there was a boozer parade was fucking sketchy. Because you had to stand in the middle of the road, you had to stand at ease, and then you had to come to attention. You had to turn left or right. You had to throw salutes, etc. There was a guard box off to the side, but you couldn't sit in the guard box. You had to stand in the middle of the road with a clipboard and then take down the registration and who was entering and exiting the battalion. But whenever there was a boozer parade on, like, you were taking your life in your own hands, because the guys, regardless of rank, would fly out of the car park. Like, it gets to, I think Shat's constitution was that nobody above the rank of corporal could be in the Shat after 1600. So whenever we had a boozer parade, it'd get to 1600, and then the RSM would take the seniors off to the sergeant's mess. The CO would take all the officers off to the O's mess, and they would continue the shenanigans out of sight of us, and then we would continue the shenanigans out of sight of them. Although, because I was married and I had to get home, so I'd miss a lot of those sort of shenanigans unless I was on guard. But you'd be standing there on guard, and we used to have Dingo, he was an ex-RI, one of the corporals there. So he'd get a gutload of alcohol in him, and he was hilarious. He'd buy a case of rum, and it's like, right, guys, we're going to play the drill game. So for the winner of the drill game, there is a case of rum. So he would be out there calling drill while drunk to a whole bunch of drunk guys who were trying to win a case of beer. It was just the whole nother world. But, like, you try and do something like that nowadays, it just would never happen.
Yeah, a lot more sensible. They've increased the price of alcohol as well, which makes everybody go off base.
Oh, what was it? I'm trying to remember the reforms that they did, or the report that they did. The 3 hours, like 3 hours, like the shat now. That doesn't apply to the shat because of the way the constitution and everything is set up. So whoever's the PMC can charge whatever he thinks is best. So the shat's run by a corporal. And the corporals are in charge of the boozer, so they get to set the tone of the actual boozer itself. So it still remains the lifeblood of the battalion even now.
Yeah, right. That's cool. Everyone will be nominating 3RA after hearing this.
Look, all three of the foundation battalions have huge amounts of unit pride and esprit de corps, because all three of them can trace their history back to the Korean War. 3RA is probably the one that has the biggest esprit de corps and still does. Like my last posting was as a platoon sergeant, mech sergeant at 3RA. So I fucking loved it getting back in there. The esprit de corps is still the same. It's fantastic. Like, the unit identity is huge, and that's something that should never be lost.
What do you think that is? I think it's being in a smaller town compared to 6 and 8, 9, where it's because they have all the options of being in a big city.
Well, like when I first got there, they're at Holsworthy in Sydney. Doesn't get much bigger than Sydney, so
true.
So that is pretty.
Just the history of the battalion.
Yeah. Although they used to consider themselves special because they were parachute, that wasn't all volunteer battalion. So yeah, they had that thing that we're paras, we're harder than everybody else.
Yeah. We got wings, you don't.
Well, I never actually got my wings. I jumped out of an aircraft twice and wound up in hospital. So.
Oh, really? What did you come down to hard?
Was it they've got new parachutes now, but the old T10s, the descent rate was almost 25 kilometers an hour when you converted it from meters a second to kilometers an hour. It was almost 25 k's an hour. Yeah, and a 149 kilo weight limit and then 22 of that is taken up. This is my weird head for tab data. 22 of that taken up for your main and reserve. So as a 110 kilo guy stepping on with, like, you end up at 132 kilos. It's and you come down at the quickest descent rate because you're bigger than everybody else. Like some of the monsters.
Have to take a pack or a weapon or anything.
Yeah, that was clean skin. Some of the monsters in the unit, when they did their combat jumps, literally were jumping out with nothing because they were too heavy.
Too big.
Yeah, so they would
throw their gear down in a crate later on.
The gear would go out. It either gets the way parachuting works is all the gear basically gets spread out over everybody else. So it's like if you're a 60 kilo guy, if you're
these little knees.
Yeah, you're a 60 kilo guy and you can get to 120 kilos before you're carrying another 60 kilos worth of kit. There's stuff that goes into a door bundle, like water tubes and things like that goes into a door bundle that goes out first. But yeah, everyone's equipment gets spread out over everybody else. So they lighten it off. So all the light guys are like, oh, jumping's not so bad. And then they do their first, you hear stories about them doing their first jump with the battalion, and they're having to carry all that weight, and they're like struggling to get out the door and having to fall out the door and then panicking because they're coming down too fast and they've never come down that fast in their lives. But yeah, then I went up in hospital and knocked myself out on my first jump, and then managed to get back to my feet, get debriefed, go back through para parade and jump again. So, and then knocked myself out. So my my last memory of jumping was stepping out of the back of the aeroplane, going down, looking up, doing my awareness count, checking, make sure my chute was okay, getting myself untangled because there was a twist in the chute, and then looking up and going, oh yeah, I'm third in the stick. There's the two guys that were out, that went out before me, above me. I'm like, oh shit, I'm coming down. Can't really judge which way the ground is going, so I just grabbed the front risers, locked it in, went down, went heels ass head, struck my head. And everyone's like, talking to a couple of guys, I'm like, ooh, you hit hard. And then we saw you sort of going through your HRND, my recovery of the harness and all that sort of stuff. And then I got debriefed. I've got no memory of it. And then no memory of going back through paraparade, no memory of putting all the kit back on, no memory of getting out of the aircraft the second time. My next memory is being held down by two of the guys from PTS, Parachute Training School, and being fed into a CAT scan at Shoalhaven Hospital.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And then getting stuck in a goofy loop for about 12 hours where I'd say the same thing over and over again. My ex-wife came down, grabbed me at the hospital, met me at the hospital. And I kept apologising to her for going through, for having to get her brought there and all that sort of stuff and getting hurt. Kept apologising, and then I'd realise that I'd apologise, and then I'd go back and start apologising all over again. Stuck doing that for about 12 hours.
So dementia loop.
Yeah, literally. But realisation is like midway through, you're like, oh shit, I've already done this before. And then going back and not being able to stop yourself doing the same thing.
Yeah, right. So that prevented you from getting qualified?
Yeah, so I didn't get qualified, and then I sort of wasn't parachute medically fit for a while afterwards, and then the unit was losing its wings, etc. So it became less of a priority for me to get the qualification. Then I also had delusions of grandeur, so I decided that I would apply to go dark side. So went and did selection, did officer selection, did all that sort of stuff. Went to RMC, did 17 months at RMC, and let my OR tendencies shine through, and started questioning a lot of the staff about why we do sort of certain stuff and all that sort of stuff, which didn't go down so well. So I ended up losing, so I ended up getting a notice to show cause termination, which I then turned into send me back to battalion. That was my second notice to show cause termination whilst I was at RMC. So
didn't fit in with the officers.
Yeah, character apparently. Look, as much as I hated my time at RMC and dealing with all the stuff that goes on, like, there are some absolutely fantastic officers. The system doesn't help generate good quality officers, unfortunately. So that's part of the problem. And
17 months, so you're only a month off graduation?
Month off graduation, yep. I hit my second notice to show cause termination. I defeated the first notice to show cause termination to the point that it was withdrawn. The mistake I made with that one was I didn't push it back to the Director of Military Arts, who's a full colonel. Didn't push it back to him and say, no, progress with it, because it had to go to the Commandant. It was a 1-star, and have him say yes or no. So everything that was brought up in the first one was brought up in the second one. And then I was literally told by my OC at one of the Capion companies. So RMC's broken down into, I think, 5 companies full of cadets where they've got an OC and a drill sergeant sitting over the top, and then they've got their own cadet rank in between. So I was told by the company OC, who was a engineer captain, that if I beat this one, I'd be straight up on another one. All right, man. Okay, I see the writing on the wall on this one.
So it wasn't too hard to go back OR?
Well, they tried PM008ing me for psychological suitability for service.
You must have been talking back pretty hard.
Yeah, potentially. Or it might have been that there was just a general bias that if you're no good to be an officer, then you're no good for the army. That sort of thing. I'm not 100% certain, but there was a few things that they didn't do correctly on the PM008. Like, they're supposed to notify you before you go into the psychology appointment that you're going for a PM008. You're being psychologically assessed for suitability for continued service. And I fucking get in there and the psych's like, oh, yeah, so you're aware that this is, and this is. I'm like, no, that's not what I've been told. I got told this was see whether I was okay to go back to, whether I was psychologically suitable to go back to being a grunt, because that's where I came from. And she's like, oh, no, this is where they're supposed to tell you this, and this is what they're supposed to be, etc., etc. And I'm like, okay, but send me back to being a grunt.
So you got sent back?
I got sent back. So I went from there to 7th Battalion, good old 7 RAR.
How long were you in 3 RAR before you went over to RMC?
Just on 2 years.
Yeah.
So I did 2 years, and then they, like, when I was at RMC, they ended up in Townsville. They moved from Holsworthy to Townsville.
Yeah. And you went down to Adelaide?
Yeah, I went down to Adelaide. Adelaide wasn't one of my choice battalions. That was like, did the classic digger thing of want to go to Brisbane. I want to go to Brisbane. My wife, who was my ex-wife, who she was by the time we posted out of, or I got sent to Adelaide, she just literally finished her law degree. So I'm like, send us to Brisbane because it'll be better for her career, etc. That she goes to Brisbane. That was my argument for that one. Following that, send me to Townsville, send me back to 3 RAR. I'll take any one of the 3 battalions in Townsville, send me to Townsville. And then they're like, 2 least preferred locations. I'm like, Adelaide and Darwin. And they're like, oh, 7 RAR, there you go. Actually, I don't think I said Darwin. I think I said Adelaide was my least preferred location, and they're like, right, send you.
Should have told them anywhere but Brisbane. I hate Brisbane.
Yeah, absolutely. So went to 7 RAR. Got there in 2012, and I got posted in a Bravo company at 7 RAR. Those guys had they were just getting back from Hawaii when I got there. The rest of the battalion was on Talisman Sabre or Hamel or whatever the Matrix. 2012 even year, it was Hamel. They were doing one of the major exercises, so all up in Shoalwater Bay. So the battalion was pretty quiet when I got there, so they stuck me to Bravo company. The battalion was also getting ready to deploy in 2012, so I got there just before all the manning was cut for that. So there was this whole suspicion of, you're only here because you want to deploy and all this sort of shit. I'm like, I'm not here because I want to fucking deploy. I'm here because I got sent fucking here. This is not my fucking, this wasn't my first choice, etc., etc. So I'm like, yep, cool, whatever. I'm like, if I don't deploy, I don't deploy. It's all good because I'm like, I've just gotten here. There's going to be nobody on the manning's already going to be cut, etc., etc. And so get back, and they're like, yep, cool. Within a month or so, the manning got released. The battalion gets reshuffled. I'm not on the manning. I'm like, yeah, no dramas. I don't care. Yeah, it'd be nice to go, but I don't deserve to go because I've literally just marched in. There's guys that have done all the hard yards with the unit, all the hard yards with the unit, and they're like, we'll go off and we'll take them. And I'm like, yep, cool. So find myself sort of about with with Bravo Company doing all the rear detail stuff, and I was sort of Bravo and Alpha. They sent Charlie in support over there because the manning wasn't big enough. Like they didn't have enough space to go because they were starting to wind everything down in Tarankout.
Yeah.
So we got, so it's like, yep, cool, no dramas. And then a couple of months later, like I'm acting. No, I did. They put me straight onto sub 2 corporal. So I did end up doing sub 2 corporal, going through that because I already had sub 1. I picked that up while I was at 3RR. And then I get promoted and I stay in the company as a lance jack, and they're like, we're doing PT one day, and then the OC pulls us aside and he's like, oh, yep, guys, just so you're aware, 7RR is going to go as part of ATF 2 because the first battalion went, like the first half of the battalion went as part of ATF 1 with 7RR's headquarters. So like, we're going as part of ATF 2 under 2CAT's headquarters. Great. Also, I'm going to get a trip. I'm a junior NCO, lance cracker, fucking gonna get a trip, etc., etc. So come back and it's like, yep, sweet. So we start prepping for all that. We deploy. We sort of get told we're going to deploy mid-year 2013. We're going to high five the rest of the battalion when we get over there. It's like great, awesome. Like all the training equipment's in Adelaide. All this sort of stuff's here. We've got the fleet of PMVs that they use for training. We've got Coltana, which looks like, to a degree, looks a bit like Afghanistan. We can train in January, February, March when it's fucking hot in Coltana and it's a hellhole. No one wants to be there. You're like, all right, great. Fucking awesome. Right, guys. We're going to force prep in Darwin. Okay. So we flew up to Darwin, we flew up to Darwin in February and then didn't come back until like late May. We sort of got a little bit of time off over Easter, which was fairly early in the year. That year was like March. Came back and then flew back up and finished off the training and then came back. And then, the 7 days of pre-operational leave is fly back to Adelaide, spend time in Adelaide, then get on a plane, fly to Afghanistan. It's just like, bang. Like working with two.
You're still married at this point?
They're still married. I'm still married at this point. So the day that we flew to Darwin was the 18th of February, which was my wedding anniversary to my ex-wife.
She loved that.
Yeah, and I went to the OC and I'm like, sir, can I fly out the next day? Can I fly up the next day? I'll pay for my own flight up there. Can I fly up the next day? No. If you do not fly, you are not on this trip. So yeah, barrel in the mouth. Like this is standard army. It's like you've got two choices. You do it our way or you do it our way. There's no other ground. So flew up there, did all that sort of stuff. Like
Were you on heavies by this stage?
No, I didn't actually. I didn't get qualified until I got back from Afghanistan. I didn't get qualified I didn't get qualified as in DFSW until I got back. That was sort of the way that one worked out for me. So what
was the trip like?
Trip was interesting. We spent most of our time. So we got over there. Everything's closing up. So we were lucky enough to be selected. Our platoon was lucky enough to be selected to go to Kandahar. So we were working out of Fob Lindsay, which was, so you got Kandahar Airfield about 5 k's away, was Fob Lindsay with Camp Hero. Camp Hero was 205 corps for the Afghan National Army. And it was, the Hero Corps. So we went over, like, we were in that fob next to that. Our job was to provide force protection for the mentors for the Corps Advisory Team. So we were working with Americans, USAF. I was working with a US Army int major for the first part of the time over there. I was also working with a int major and a intelligence sergeant. So like they were who I was looking after. There was was sitting under a full colonel. Yeah, full colonel. I think engineer lateral transfer from the UK, Shanahan. He was pretty cool. Like he was pretty loose. He was loose. He would whoever got, he had an MP as his guardian angel, would often pick up one of us grunts to go with him. Like when his MP was on Rockall or something like that, he would pick up one of the grunts to go off to Fob Apache or any of the other places. And so they'd fly in on Afghan Mi-8s, like just the two of them, or flying with an aircraft full of Afghanis, get off at the other end of the aircraft to fly off, and it's like, yeah, we're here for 2 days, 3 days. Just two random Australians in a compound full of Afghanis. It's like, it was pretty loose. The guys, it was 2 guys that had to look after call sign Tinkerbell, who was a US Army, she was a full bird colonel. Oh, sorry, not US Army, US Air Force, full bird colonel, lawyer. And she had no idea about what was going on. She had no idea what was going on, and things were seriously loose with her. I remember the boys telling me a story about, actually, one of my good mates was telling me a story about it. They went to the Afghan prison, like the prison on base, and she's wandering around with a pistol. And they're like, oh no, you can't go into this compound with your pistol. So she takes a pistol out and starts handing it to the Afghanis. And my mate Brownie was just like, ma'am, no.
You got in any hairy situations?
We got shot at a couple of times in the compound. Negligent discharges that occurred on the range was the official line. The range was like 2.5 kilometers from where we were. So it was
ND from the A&A.
Well, it doesn't make an ND doesn't sound quite like that. So we had 2 separate incidents, both involving it was just like 1 shot or 2 shots that were fired. First one was both centering around General Abrams, who was the head of Regional Command South, RC South. He was coming in for a briefing, and so it was always funny when he turned up to a briefing, because his platoon of personal protection would turn up. They would turn up, and I think he was a 2-star general. They would turn up with all these hardened SUVs, like these big Suburbans that are all up armored and all that sort of stuff. And then he would fly across with 2 Blackhawks that land and then get driven then get driven from the LZ to the briefing area. It's like, mate, it's like 800 meters. You could walk it. And you're risking everything by sending your platoon's worth of cars and people across to escort you.
Yeah.
So it was just it was absolutely
highlighting the target.
Yeah, and someone decided to take a shot at all of us whilst we were outside the briefing room. So all the Americans are on the ground and they're scanning and everything like that. Most of the Australians are sort of like, taking a lower profile, sitting close to walls and things like that. Me, I'm just like, okay, no, if it's one shot at us, like, I'm not that concerned. Just wandering around, just making sure that the guys have got water and all that sort of stuff. Making sure everyone's okay. And then a couple of weeks later, we're dealing with General Abrams, and there was another shot whilst he was having dinner with the general. There was a couple of rounds that were fired in our general direction while he was having dinner with the Afghani general. So it's like
terrible shots, obviously.
Yeah, it was. They weren't really looking at it, but like, put it in perspective though. When we were over there in 2013, the major killer of coalition troops was insider attacks.
Yeah,
like green on blues. They also coined a new one while we were over there, which was brown on blue. So the Olive Group, who did most of the perimeter security, was employing Afghan locals who had less security vetting than the interpreters that we were working with or the Afghan army.
Yeah. Smart.
Yeah, like, I remember the guy I was working with, the ink guy I was working with, talking about it. I think, or it was either him or it was Shanahan. They were talking about it, and they're like, in the past 3 months, we've lost, like, ISAF had lost 6 people to IEDs. They'd lost 6 people to IEDs. So, not huge, but they'd lost 80 plus people to insider attacks.
Mm-hmm.
So, places like FOB Apache was the Badlands. There was an insider attack with US Army Rangers. They were running a range for the Afghanis. One of them grabbed his rifle, turned it, and proceeded to unload at the ammunition table where all the Rangers were. That sort of thing. There was a brown on blue. There was a brown on blue where one of the Olive Group guards had climbed down out of his tower, or fired from rounds from his tower down into the coalition groups that were, just going about their normal daily business.
Yeah, no good.
Yeah. Well, when we were there was, we got there and we weren't there too long after. We weren't there for too long when Camp Beard got killed.
Yeah.
So that was like, we were in Kandahar when that one happened, but there were a lot of guys there that had to, get stood to go out and secure the incident site and all that sort of stuff. And then they were there for the ramp ceremony, etc. So, yeah, it was sort of like, it was very real for the guys that were in TK. We got invited to Camp Baker at Kandahar Airfield to hang out with the Australian contractors while they did the ramp ceremony. Did a memorial ceremony at Camp Baker, which was there. So,
yeah, pretty somber experience.
Yeah, very somber experience. And then just before we left, one of the platoons that was in Kabul at the ANA Officer Academy, there was a green on blue there where one of my mates got hit, and one of the guys returned fire, etc. So section out doing, or less than that, a fire team out doing a security escort task, and things got hairy very, very quickly, and they were involved in a green on blue. Fortunately, no one was killed and no one was too seriously injured. So that was that was sort of that in terms of our level of contact.
Keeping you on your toes.
Yeah, it was like, the moment there was a green on blue, we'd shut down for 72 hours. It's like, right, no one's going anywhere near the Afghanis for the next 72 hours.
Yeah. Makes you a bit untrusting and side-eyeing all the Afghanis.
Well, yeah, like one of the things, like when we were there, because we were at Kandahar, Slovaks took their first casualties of the war when they were coming back in from doing a ground defence patrol around Kandahar airfield, and one of the Afghanis was up in a tower with a 240 Bravo, which is a Mag 58, just a slightly cut down barrel, and he's turned that 240 on the Slovaks, killed one of them, wounded two, before he had a catastrophic stoppage. The Slovaks showed extreme restraint and managed to grab him out of the tower and touch him up a little bit, but they didn't kill him, and then handed him over. And within 72 hours, like the Afghan, he'd walked out the front gate of Camp Hero.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Someone obviously had got hold of the Afghan master sergeant that was running the prison, and they walked him out the front gate. They picked him out, signed him up, because it was like, oh, we're going to take him to the med centre, which he'd been beaten up pretty badly by the Slovaks. And then put him in a car, drove him down to the front gate, got out the front gate, walked him out the front gate, and then he got in another car and drove off out the front. And that became a bit of a touchy issue for the Yank Major I was working with, because the person he was mentoring was responsible for this guy's interrogation, his trial, his imprisonment, and one of his NCOs had walked the prisoner out the door. So that became a very touchy subject.
But, don't leave him alive was the new brief.
No, actually, good mate of mine, who was my oppo, looking after this major, is like, we're sitting in the back of the PMV, just after watching him get the major get his Bronze Star, getting his Bronze Star, and we're sitting in the back of the PMV, and he's like, Slade's turned around and gone, well, you know what this says? You shoot a coalition soldier, the worst you're going to get is 3 days in jail. And yeah, US major's like, you are fucking 100% on the money with that. It's like, yeah, you shoot any coalition soldier and you get captured, the worst you're going to get is 3 days in jail. That's like,
Terrible.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't think there'll be any getting left handed over after that, was there?
No, I didn't hear of anyone getting handed over after that, I think. But then, yeah, we finished up in Kandahar, and then we went back over to Taran Kowt, which was sitting there, and we spent most of our time either doing ground defence patrols around TK, so we go out and wander off into the urban areas and patrol through, making sure that we had a visual presence. The infantry were responsible for doing the ground defence patrols on the populated side of TK, and then the multinational base at Taran Kowt, and the Aggies who were actually responsible for the base defence, etc., and the defence of Camp Holland. They would do GDA patrols in the open area, because the commander of command team Uruzgan couldn't or didn't trust them to do the job in built up areas. Which, he was a grunt himself, so he's like, no, that's a grunt job. If anyone's going to the urban areas, it's going to be the grunts. It's not going to be the Aggies.
Aggies.
Yeah, poor Aggies. They look, when I was at 7RL, we worked quite closely with the 3 Sec 4 when they were there, and they were fantastic. Like those guys, for what they did, the amount of shit that they got from the Air Force and the lack of pay that they got, were pretty good dudes. Yeah, they just have a different flag on their shoulder, that powdery blue thing.
Yeah. They cop a bit of shit, RGs and MPs, but I know good ones of both of those corps.
Yeah. No, there's always...
They're not all bad.
Yeah, like the difference, like we worked with some American MPs in Kandahar, and the difference between them and our MPs is insane. Like those guys do convoy escorts, they do protection, they do a lot of actual combat roles. So yeah, they were route clearances and things like that, and yeah, these guys they got put with us to help do the Guardian Angel stuff. They all had their call sign was, they all had Joker as their call sign. The Americans do call signs so much better than we do.
Yeah, for sure. All their call signs and death symbology and stuff.
Yeah, like they got blown up and shot up a lot more than what the Australians would tolerate. Like they were working through Panjwai as part of the Kandahar province, and that was like the serious Badlands. Like it was Panjwai and Helmand, from memory, weren't that far apart. And it was the serious Badlands around there. They were getting a lot, like their convoys were regularly getting IED'd or attacked. So these guys are like, it's like, you guys have done enough of this now. We're going to give you this cushy job before we send you back to the United States.
A bit of R&R in country.
Yeah, we ended up in TK. We closed up TK. We had a platoon up in Kabul who were looking after the ANA Officer Academy. Mutual friend. That was the trip that Bart's was supposed to be on. Like that was his platoon. They were the guys that had the green on blue while we were up there, or while they were there. For the rest of us, it was pretty uneventful. The war on ASODs at the Army Standard Orders of Dress at Tarancount was a thing. We just...
So everyone was getting a bit free and loose.
Yeah, it wasn't even that. It was just like people didn't have things to do, so they would start focusing in on the little 1%ers. CO, RSM, 2CAV were amongst the probably some of the worst offenders, to the point that they'd given a directive that if we were down at Green Beans, like the coffee shop and stuff like that, and if you saw anybody incorrectly dressed, that you had to chip them for it, like for the Australians, which is fantastic. Okay, awesome. I get it. We need to maintain appearances, etc., but you had Camp Holland, but right across, sharing a wall with Camp Holland, was Camp Russell. And those guys operated on a completely different set of rules. And we, as private soldiers, junior NCOs, had to go and chip a bunch of guys wearing Merrills with long hair and beards who were actually going out and doing their fucking job. We had to go and tell them off for being incorrectly dressed when they came out.
They tell you to get fucked.
Oh, no, like they generally didn't, because they understood the fuckwittery that we were dealing with. Like,
I'll get right on that, Corporal.
Not even that. It's just like one of my mates was sitting there and he's having a coffee, and a couple of operators come down, and he's looked over and he's like, "Oh, CO and RSM are here," and he's just gone wandering over to them. He's like, "Hey fellas, see those two guys over there? That's CO and RSM. We need you. I get in trouble if I don't go and say something to you, blah blah blah." And they're like, the operator's like, "No dramas, man. You're just doing your job. You're just doing what you're told to." So they dutifully put their hats on and everything like that, and then as they're wandering off, they wander past the RSM and the CA, they look at them and just take their hats off and keep walking.
Stick it to them.
Yeah, it's like that's the level of like, yeah, it's just that sort of stuff. And we had people coming and visiting, and it's like majors opening gates for dignitaries. It's like like the guy is the highest paid gate opener in Australia. Like,
So how long were you over there for, and what was it like coming home?
6 and 7 months. So ended up coming home got home on the 9th of December. 9th of December. So that was sort of, I got home that. So I'd basically been away, short of, I did Rockall as well. I was like, Rockall. So I came back to Australia instead of going and doing the classic fucking Aussie thing of going and partying in Rome and stuff like that and all that sort of stuff. Like, married guy, fucking ex-wife had a brand new job and she didn't have leave, so I'm like, all right, dutifully come home while she goes to work, so I'm sitting at home on my own. You're like, this is fantastic. This is fantastic.
And then you got divorced and you're like, what a waste.
Yeah, so this is fantastic. I've been brought home to sit around on my own doing nothing for 10 days. I'm like, fucking, this is shit.
What, you're in Ibiza?
Yeah. The guys were going to Ibiza and stuff like that. The guys are coming back with pretty wild stories about blowing thousands of dollars in, a single night because they forgot to take into account when they were in England that the exchange rate was huge. So that sort of thing, like, those sorts of wild stories. And I'm like, yep. And what did you do? I sat on the couch and watched television for 10 days. That was what I did. And then I looked around the house at all the stuff that had been bought while I was deployed. That sort of thing. That was sort of my Rockall experience. And came back, and other than the Easter break, the 7 days off before we left, and then the sort of the 10 days in the Rockall, I hadn't been home that whole year. So it was sort of coming back into that. And then we roll back in 2014. We come back in, we start excuse me. Memory's not so good. We started that's when the ADF decided, or Army decided it was going to go into this reset, ready cycle. So one brigade winds up in the reset cycle post operations. So we get 7 hours part of one brigade. So we get dirked with that. So we are, oh, you're in the reset cycle. And it's like, yep. So that means we get dirked with all the support tasks. Here you go. We need a platoon to go off to RMC and play enemy. We need a platoon to go and do this and play enemy. We need to go and platoon. It's also the time that we do all our courses and things like that. So I managed to pick up a DFSW course.
How'd you go going from being in an active war zone to coming back into the playing games?
Coming back in and playing games and the stupidity of it and stuff like that was demoralizing, because it's like, we're not actually getting to do soldiery shit. Although it's like, oh yeah, cool, we're left alone. We've got, left alone to a degree. It's like, okay, everyone needs to have their mobile phone, because how else are the DS going to get in contact you? We've got radios, but no one's going to use the radios, because the cadets know if they turn to the enemy net, they can hear the conversations going on, so everything gets sent via text comms. So, we just like, go meet them at this grid, go and do this. This is the scenario. Sweet, go off and do all of that sort of stuff. Like, pretty low drag, but you're away. And you're coming back into, like, you're just watching stupid stuff, and then you're going off and doing exercises. You're playing enemy for, other battalions, etc. And it's just like, this sucks. And then we're going out and doing our own exercises to build up and all that sort of stuff. Because we have to tick all those boxes. I managed to pick up the DFSW basic course, which was awesome. lot of fun. Huge number of rounds, like 7.62, like going, just blasting through thousands of rounds at 7.62, rocketing, shooting 84s, all that good stuff. We shot a lot. I shot a lot of 84s in Afghanistan, or safety souped a lot of because it's like, here's the see this PMV? Yep. See all that ammunition? Yep. We're not taking it back to Australia. Okay. We shoot it or we blow it up. All right, we'll go and fucking shoot it. We'll go and shoot it. And the next year is when they brought in the blast overpressure limits. In 2014, 2014 is when they brought in blast overpressure limits, because we, in 2013 when we deployed, we're part of Project Cerebro, so we had all these blast overpressure gauges on us, on our helmets, on our front and rear of our body armor and our shoulders.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So they were concerned back in 2013 that blast overpressure was a thing. Go to the range. Boom. Why are all the gauges showing red or black?
Maxed out.
Yeah, like literally maxed out. And someone makes a phone call, because we were told if the gauges went either red or black, you need to contact the roll to echo, because you've been involved in a serious overpressure incident. You need to go back and do cognitive testing, cogstate testing. You need to do cogstate testing, and be assessed because you've been potentially involved in or close proximity to a very large blast overpressure event. Because it was
firing an 84 puts you in that risk every time.
Yeah, absolutely. It was equivalent to being in close proximity to an IED going off, which was what they were concerned about. Phone call gets made, and it's like, yeah, don't worry about it. Take the gauges off.
Take the gauges off.
Like we fired 84.
Well, we're not going to stop firing 84s, so
yeah, take the gauges off. So we were wandering around for months, like with gauges that were blown because we'd fired 84s. I was like, we Afghan unload.
Now that they've done this studies and stuff, they pretty much discovered that every soldier in infantry's been exposed to some pretty serious blast overpressure.
Well, it's not even infantry's not alone. Infantry is absolutely
artillery and
arty, regardless of whether
cav.
Yeah, your own story. You were light artillery, mortars. Yeah. RAAC.
It sends a pretty serious shock through your body when you fire them.
Yeah, absolutely. Like RAAC, whether it's 25 mil, whether it's 120 mil, sniper rifles push out, particularly the 12.7s, push out a huge amount of blast overpressure. 40 mil, like the automatic grenade launchers and things like that.
So it's similar to like CTE with fighters.
Yeah, it's very similar. So I've actually got CTE recognised as a DVA condition. That only happened a few weeks ago. Not actually something I put in for. I put in for moderate to severe traumatic brain injury, but that got denied. But they said, "Oh, we're going to give you CTE because it's one of my separating conditions."
Isn't CTE only discoverable on autopsy?
Yes, so it's blast-induced traumatic brain injury. So like, I became aware of it. I had been becoming aware of it because like in 2018, myself and one other guy ate 46 rounds in 36 hours. The third guy that was a safety supervisor with us, he, I think, ate 2 less rounds than us. Like as in we just sat there and like we had to safety supervise, and it's like, hey guys, this is your training objective. This is what you've got to do. Our platoon sergeant pushed it back, going, "Hey, I need staff. I need staff for this. No, can't have them. You've got to get it done." Fine, we'll get it done.
You hear that all the time, eh? We've got these limits over 24 hours, but you're the only secos I've got, so you're on.
Yeah. We'll make sure that the diggers adhere to they adhere to the 7, but what we'll do is
yeah, it's at 7.
yeah, we'll turn a blind eye to the safety staff because it doesn't apply to them.
Is there like a safe radius if you're firing it off the shoulder? How far can you be?
Each weapon system has a different blast radius. Like if anyone's looking for really good references on this, go and have a look on Instagram or on LinkedIn at Vigil Australia.
Vigil,
yeah. Vigil Australia. Those guys, like that. It's a community. It's a community of learners, not lawyers, learners. It's a community of learners. They are very focused in on this whole brain injury stuff. A lot of special forces people involved in this. Also, a lot of just normal army people as well as a few PhD doctors and things like that who contribute and provide advice, etc. The guy who is the head of it is self-funding himself to go to France, to go to the UK, to go to Canada, to go to the United States. He's linked in with Conquer, who's a group who work with the US DOD or DOW now, Department of War. Yeah. Like about all of this. So the research is very real. Very real. So like, yeah, if you like each of the weapon systems, the tier 1 weapon systems, which includes 12.7, 50 cal, that it is in there, and it will have a radius as to where the blast exists for that, like roughly for 84, and it varies depending on the round that you're firing. Like it's about 20 meters. So if you're more than 20 meters away,
with safety super, you need to be closer than that, eh?
Yeah, absolutely. Like, because part of the deal with being a safety supervisor, particularly when you're firing explosive natures, is you have to be in a position where you can grab the guy. If there is a drop short, you need to be in a position where you can grab the operators and pull them down behind blast and splinter-proof cover. But the problem is firing from behind blast and splinter-proof cover. The brick walls divert the blast back into you. So, like, you're copping the double whammy because you get the reverberated or the reflected blast coming back into you. And like, I watched Army Safe Day. They rightfully did a thing on blast overpressure is one of the focuses for Army Safe Day. But the guy gets up there and says, "Oh yeah, mild traumatic brain injuries characterized by a loss of consciousness." Incorrect. I've got 3 neurologists I've seen 3 neurologists about what's going on with my head. They would disagree with that. There's at least one PhD doctor in neuroscience in Perth that would disagree with that. Like, it's a very real thing. The Canadians, the Brits, the French, the Americans are very concerned about this.
Yeah. Let me ask you, how old are you now?
48.
And you talked about some memory loss and stuff like that, and having a diagnosis of CTE. How worried are you for the future?
Oh, I'm fucking very, very concerned. Like, I'm very concerned about it because if I cannot slow or stop the decline, I am worried about what's going to become of me.
Yeah.
I'm remarried. I've got a very, very loving, very, very beautiful wife. And who is literally the only thing that keeps me on this planet. And I often struggle to remember her name. I have called her my ex-wife's name a couple of times, which never goes down well. Or the other one is yeah. The other one is like you talk about. Like everyone has default coping techniques. Everyone has default coping techniques, and if I can't remember somebody's name, Sir Ma'am, mate.
Mate, yeah.
Yeah, I've mated my wife quite a few times. It's getting worse. Yeah, 100%. When she hears this, she'll laugh. She will absolutely laugh at it. So,
just to default to darling or babe or anything.
Yeah, we do have pet names as well. I've also used the pet name that I used to use for my ex-wife with her, which is not one that I've never used. So it's like, yeah, it's concerning. Like I have days. What was it yesterday? Yesterday I completely misbalanced and smashed my head into a wall because I got vertigo and all that sort of stuff. So you combine that. I've also got diagnosis of PTSD, major depressive disorder. One of the major issues that we have, particularly in this sort of space, is in defence. It's you can't say that it's one or the other. We are a conglomerate of problems, particularly in the veteran community. You'll have people that have got PTSD, you've got depression, all this sort of stuff, brain injury, and they can have all of that. One of the things that characterises a lot of the guys that have got blast-induced traumatic brain injury, sorry, I'm struggling a little bit at the moment, is the fact that a lot of the symptoms present the same as PTSD, but medications don't work. Like a lot of medications won't work on those people. I've had a number of I've been prescribed an antipsychotic. I've been prescribed antidepressant, and I've had all the severe reactions to that, including like increased suicidal ideation, that sort of stuff. So one of the things that sort of brought a lot of this to head was 2024, 17th of April 2024. I took myself to the Alfred Hospital because I'd made the decision that I was going to end my life. So I took myself to the Alfred Hospital. First, Stella knew about it, but she's getting a phone call from my psychologist who I'd rung and said, hey, this is where I am, this is what I'm doing. So yeah. That sort of became a big part of it. That whole incident was like, I think that was that point. Like I was at work. I'd been working. We'd gone and met with the prime that we're dealing with as part of Project Land 400 on phase 3, and then I'd gone back to. I'd made my decision before I'd even gone to work that I wasn't going to come home that day. And I went to the gym to try and clear my head, etc. That wasn't working. And so I was leaving work. And I had two choices. I either turned right and walked myself down to the Alfred Hospital, or I turned left and then went and utilised one of the 3 plans that I had for, I love defence. It's one of the best skills that they teach you in the army, how to plan.
Planning prevents piss poor performance.
Oh yeah, but also,
All right, planning.
But you've done, as a reserve officer, you would have done military appreciation. How many courses of actions do you need to come up with?
3.
Yeah, 3 courses of action. Yeah, I had 3 courses of action. I had 3 courses of action, so three mechanisms of suicide.
Why'd you turn right?
Stella. Only reason. Because
couldn't do it to her.
Yeah, couldn't do it to her. She's already her last partner literally died in front of her. So he had a heart attack at, I think, 30 and died in front of her. Yeah, so I couldn't, and I still cannot put her through that. So that's the only thing that keeps me glued here at the moment. But yeah, so I went up in hospital, like fucking typical fucking indoctrinated grunt. First thing, there's been an incident. What do you need to do? Send up an incident report. So I sent that out. What to my fucking RSM. Just like fuck. It's like, part of the reason why they train us the way they train us is in high stress situations they need us to be able to do that sort of stuff. So they want us to be able to follow through on the process, and I did all of that. So yeah, but the other thing was running in the background off. So I got a headache in around about January 2024. So I've had a headache since January 2024. It just fluctuates in intensity level. So that sort of stuff. So anyway, but yeah, that's sort of what sort of started bringing this all to head.
You said that they've given you a few different drugs and stuff to try and help that haven't helped. Is there anything that does help?
No, the only thing that really helps, I actually haven't found anything that really helps. The only thing I can do is just try and maintain things routine. Like the headache doesn't go away; it just fluctuates. I can wake up in the morning, and if I wake up and the room is spinning because I've got really bad vertigo, I'm going to have a bad day. Or I wander out and I crash into the walls and things like that. I actually have to handrail on the walls because I'll bounce into them, things like that. But like that's the way it is. That's the way it is at the moment. But yeah, like they prescribed me quetiapine. I ended up with massive quetiapine might make you drowsy. It might make you it'll help you sleep. It'll help you do all of this sort of stuff. I'm like, no, it kept me awake for 24, 36 hours. Suicidal ideations went up through the roof. My vertigo got worse. Venlafaxine, they put me on that, which is an antidepressant. Same deal. Suicidal ideations went up, and it was supposed to help with the vertigo. Didn't. That sort of stuff. So there's a part of the problem. I've been talking to a few others about it, and that's like, it's not uncommon. It's not uncommon at all.
So you found a bit of a network through Vigil?
Yeah, through Vigil. There's a huge amount of research being done globally on this sort of problem. There's people that are working on treatments, etc. I attended the 1 year on conference run by Pro Patria and Wagga. And Pro Patria is veteran-led. Sort of organisation. They're looking at alternative therapies, hyperbaric chamber. There's a lot of work coming out of Israel at the moment. They're using esketamine. They're looking at esketamine. They're looking at psychedelics, medical marijuana, counselling. The works like Pro Patria is it's holistic. It's not just you come in and you do your ketamine. You also come in, you get counselling, you get all this sort of stuff. You get taught how to eat better, all that sort of stuff. the weird one about Pro Patria is the main guy behind it, Jason Frost, was one of my RIs going through Kapuka. He's a break qualified boatie. For Two Commando. He was break qualified when we were at Kapuka. He was sort of came to Kapuka because his wife's family's at Wagga. So he's like, well, how can I get a posting? How can I get a posting that puts my wife closer to home? That's it. I'll go to Wagga. So I'll go to Wagga.
No, they let two dudes to be RIs.
Yeah, no, he was a bit of an anomaly. He was a so he went and did the RI stint there, and that's how I know him. So, but that was sort of interesting talking to guys like who are snipers and breachers and things like that, and they're all just as fucked as I am, if not worse. That troubles me.
The hidden cost of high level service.
Oh, was it who was the guy you suggested I listen to? Invisible Injuries. It's not that whole thing. It is an invisible injury. You don't see it. We talk about suicide prevention and stuff like that, and it's like this is part of it. If we're not looking after the brain health and the cognitive function of our warfighters, we are not doing them justice. And inhibition like memory problems, pain, all this sort of stuff, vertigo, inhibition, etc. Like if I have I have a long history with suicide. Like my first attempt at suicide was like somewhere around 9-10 when I was living in Nullarbor. Suicide by crocodile. Like I talk about
crocodile. Jesus Christ.
Yeah, I wandered up an estuary that I knew that there was crocodiles in, trying to find a crocodile.
Oh my God, you weren't looking for an easy way out.
Like I grew up with growing up with alcoholic parents. The other one is physically and sexually abusive, etc. Mother used to cover it all up, all that sort of shit. So it's like dealt with that. That continued until we moved to Victoria, and I was too big and could stand up for myself. My way out of it is to go look for dangerous things, go do dumb shit, as opposed to my younger brother who's gave himself a paranoid psychosis on dope, fucked around with speed and heroin and shit like that. So alcohol, all that good stuff. That's sort of it. When I joined my army, I literally walked away from my family. Like last time I saw my brother, he was off his face on speed, and that was 2008 was the last time I saw my family. 2009 was last time I heard from my family, which was when my grandmother died. The black sheep of the family, I walked away because it wasn't a healthy place for me to be. Then there's been other attempts at suicide as a teenager and things like that, fucking around on train tracks, which is one of my chosen methods. Death by train. So that sort of shit. Then, fucking number of attempts afterwards. When I admitted to hospital, I'd already made 3 or 4 attempts that in the lead up to it. They were interrupted. That's the reason why. My wife's one of the protective factors. The other protective factor is I want to try, with all my plans, I've tried to minimize the amount of impact that it has on other people. So, got interrupted a few times. So that brought that out. I think one of my most creative attempts was 2017. I got very, very close to blowing myself up with explosives. And there was we were having we had a range shoot for the FSW platoon, and obviously disposal of malfunctioning explosive ordnance was one of the tasks that I had, and all the qualifications I had. So I we just hit a real low point, with suspected infidelity with my ex-wife whilst I was deployed in 2016, all this sort of stuff. The culture in the platoon wasn't that great. Our platoon commander was not fantastic. Our platoon sergeant was going through a divorce, so he wasn't the best person to deal with, etc., etc. Just generally having some problems being completely isolated from friends and everything like that. So yeah, I lit the fuse on a charge. I was blowing up some 40 mils and decided that I'd just lay down next to it, and then decided that probably didn't want to inflict that on the platoon, so picked up and moved outside of the blast radius. I was probably about 3 or 4 steps outside of the blast radius after moving pretty quick time when the charges went off. That sort of thing.
So, due to your rough childhood and stuff, it's kind of always been something in the back of your head or go to.
100%. Like, it's a way out. It's like, fuck, I was joking around yesterday with my psychiatrist, and I'm like, I always wished I was adopted, because that way I could. Yeah. Unfortunately, due to my fucking red.
Has to pray for it.
Due to my red hair, unfortunately, I cannot deny the fact that my father is my father.
Look exactly like him.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Still a chance.
Unfortunately, so that, and then living with my ex-wife was not a pleasant experience either. Systematically isolated me from my friends, work colleagues, and stuff like that. I wasn't allowed to spend money. Because I had to have a joint account. She could have her own account, etc., etc. So financial control was a big deal.
You're in an abusive relationship.
Yeah, absolutely. Getting punched, getting threatened with being stabbed in my sleep, etc.
Oh shit.
Yep, 100%. And the clincher to that one is, like, you're a 6'4", 110 kilo guy. Who's going to believe you?
Oh yeah.
She's got a fucking point. She actually does have a point. Like, I can tell people about it, and people will sit there and say, "Oh,
toughen up, princess."
Yeah, toughen up, princess. Nah, you gotta be fucking joking. She's 5 foot, whatever. Like, she wouldn't do that. Fuck off. You don't have to live with her. You don't. Stabbing me with a knife was a thing. Like, she joined the army in 2017. And she was, so she joined up as a SIG, even though she was a lawyer by trade, and she eventually missioned as an SSO, a legal officer, and she posted to Townsville. She's like, "Oh, I want to have a knife to protect myself." So went to a local tack shop at the Scorpion, which is run by a fucking ex-member of the battalion, fucking Stu Locke from 3 yep, hey mate, want this? Fucking, I went bought her a clearance knife, double-edged dagger that goes in your body armor and things like that. So she used to keep that under a jewelry box by the bed. And so, she's like, "If you ever piss me off, I'll fucking stab you in your sleep." Okay.
It's always harm to self, not harm to others.
Yeah. So Like, fucking, she, a few times she'd punch me in the back of the head and things like that, and I'd end up completely concussed. So, yeah.
Fiery little fucker.
Yeah, well, yeah. Well, like, when I was talking to the ABC, about the blast overpressure stuff, like one of the things, so I was involved in a range incident in 2021 at 3RR. 2021 at 3RR. So in this range incident, I'd completely forgotten to open the range. There was no one down range. We were the only range users. Everything was perfectly safe except for this one thing, which was me forgetting to open the range. I've been involved in, I don't know how many range practices. I know that I need to open ranges. I know that this, etc., etc. And I just completely forgot. And I should have looked at that and gone, hang on, what's going on here? And looked at that as a sign for my memory problems beginning or becoming seriously noticeable. Like, if I'm having this, I can guarantee you there is a whole bunch of my peers in the infantry that are having similar problems with their memories. Some of them are just going to be better at hiding it, or have put procedures in place so that they're not having those sorts of impacts on their performance. So fucking, like I was saying, I was involved in a range incident where that came up, 2021. But I got charged for it, and rightly so. Like, fucking, you make a fuck up, you've got to fucking wear the consequences. Why we have the DFDA. So,
And Forced Disciplinary Act for those listening.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. you make a mistake, you fucking, do the crime, do the time. It exists for multiple reasons, and it was my negligence. I didn't set enough things in place to make sure that I opened the range. And like, fortunately, the worst didn't happen, so no one was injured. So I got charged, but the added complication with that is my ex-wife was one of the legal officers at 3 Brigade in Townsville. I'm at 3RR, which is a subordinate unit to 3RR, to 3 Brigade. All charges have to go through a legal officer to be vetted, to make sure that the punishments are okay, that the way the person, like the whole process, the due process has been afforded. This is after they've said march in the guilty bastard. Because let's just be honest, in the DFDA, we're not going to charge somebody if we think that they can, if they're going to fight it, and there's a chance that they're not going to be found guilty. So we won't generally charge people. So, and I'd made the fuck up, and I was going to plead guilty about it, but but it had to go and get vetted. It has to go, which my ex-wife worked in that cell.
Like conflict of interest?
Complete conflict of interest, but there'd been a fact finding conducted into me earlier that somehow the brigade commander accidentally gave to my ex-wife. We were trying to settle up our properties and all our property and stuff like that. Go through the separation and the splitting of assets, etc., etc., which she then proceeded to ring me about and tell me that she knew all about it and that I was not to contact her, regardless of the fact that she hadn't provided me with all the property, all the stuff or the assets that we'd decided we'd agreed to split. So, like a whole bunch of ethical questions about, you accidentally got this information, now what have you done with it? So I raised that as a problem, but that also sent me down pretty big spiral, and fortunately my CSM fucking rang me that night. It's like fucking done the "Are you okay?" fucking phone call. Like, seriously, bro, like I can come over right now. I can come over right now and make sure you're okay. And fucking standard army default answer and of no, I'm good. No, I'm good. Like, defense we get very, very good at. Very, very good at need to know. You don't tell anyone. You don't tell anyone that doesn't need to know something. If they don't need to know that I'm going to kill myself, like, they don't need to know. So plus years of conditioning, like as a kid growing up, there were certain things I was not allowed to talk about with strangers, with family members, etc. With my ex-wife, I wasn't, allowed to talk to people, etc. It was kept pretty under fair amount of control, isolated from my friends and things like that. So, you get very good at not saying things. And
is your dad still alive?
Allegedly.
Did you ever confront him as an adult?
I didn't confront him. I've never confronted him as an adult, by virtue of the fact I'm not sure how I'm going to respond.
Mm.
I'm either going to...
If you can restrain yourself.
Yeah. I'm either going to go two ways where I'm going to be... Or I could go three ways. I could confront him and it's all going to go fine. I could just end up going back into a place that's not great for me, retreating backwards, or the other one is it triggers something and I do something which I probably enjoy, would end up regretting. I'm concerned about that. I'm concerned about that. So like moving back to Melbourne, that was one of my concerns. So there's been a couple of incidents where I think I've seen my ex-wife around Victoria Barracks. And that has triggered me at the whole full PTSD response to that one. I'm like, shit. So it takes me a bit of time to talk about that one and calm down.
So 2021 was the start of the decline towards J5?
Yeah, or no, 24 was when that started. Sorry, 23 when I got my neck fused, C45, C6, 7 fused. The doctor didn't inform me that multi-level spinal fusion surgery is not compatible with continued service in the army. So I elected to take the spinal surgery. Combine that with mental health, then add in the brain injury, cognitive decline, etc. That sort of started the spiral down. Defence did offer me J42, but the proviso on that is if I have to inform them if my medical condition gets worse. But as a J42 infantry sergeant, other than driving at desk, like my list of restrictions is pretty extensive. Things like I cannot be around gunshots. Like, for some reason they've put that in there. I can't be in armored vehicles that were exposed to excessive vibrations. I can't handle weapons. I managed to get that one changed too. I can't handle live weapons and all that sort of stuff, except for wets. So I managed to get all that changed. But for an infantry sergeant and someone that's working in the armored vehicle space that was like that, who's spent most of my time the last 3 years as an instructor, there's nothing I could do. So
just become an admin sergeant.
Yeah, and my cognitive decline is getting worse. So I'm like, fucking make me J5, send me, let me go. I think I need to go.
Yeah. You feel ready?
As ready as I've ever been. I've done 17 and a half years in defence, and I'm as ready as I'm ever going to be. Like, I'm slowly starting to uncouple myself from work. I know it's going to be a fall. It's when I hit 5th of February and I'm officially promoted to Mister. Yeah, it's going to be difficult, and I'm going to have to deal with that. But I'm prepping myself for that as much as I can. Looking at what I can do. I don't know what I'm going to do moving forward. I'm looking at what I can do.
And have you got, do you work with strategies and stuff with your psychiatrists for protective mechanisms?
Yeah, look, I do work with that. I do work extremely hard with that one, sort of working through all the different therapies and things like that. You know, I do what I can, maintain routine, do things, find things that I enjoy, so that sort of stuff. So,
What do you enjoy?
To going to the gym, working out, taking my dogs for a walk, going out and taking my wife out to dinner and stuff like that. Just simple stuff. Simple things. It's easy. And then I just got to find something that gives me purpose.
Yeah, something new.
Yeah.
You think about working or like contributing to the space?
Yeah, look, I'd love to contribute to the space. I just got to find something that I'm passionate about and something I can do when I'm having good days and manage when I'm having bad days.
Yeah. And what about the research stuff with Vigil?
Yeah, look, I'll contribute to that when I can.
You're looking at doing the psilocybin and those trials when they become available?
Yeah, like I'm happy to try anything. So
yeah. Get some psychedelics in you.
Yeah, me and drugs not a very good thing, but I'll try it. If it's done in a controlled environment, it's all good.
Yeah. They can sedate you if it starts going sideways.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've always been scared of. I've never done any psychedelics because they say that the worst of your memories come up.
Yeah. I don't want to do that. Like, but if it's done in a controlled environment and it's done correctly, then the risks are reasonably low, and it's all delivered as a complementary therapy to everything else.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
Cool. Well, anything else you wanted to mention while you're here?
No, it's all good, Harvey. Sorry, Harley.
It's not the first. You're not the first person to call me Harvey.
Yeah.
Cool, man. Really nice meeting you. Thanks for opening up and sharing your story.
Yeah, cheers. Thanks, man.
It's an important one for sure.
Definitely.
And hopefully people get eyes on it and become a bit more aware of restricting the amount of last pressure exposures they have, for sure.
Absolutely. Like, we got to look after the personnel we've got. Our people are our greatest capability. And if we're not managing our capability and our people correctly, and like you talk about the rehab space, where you work, if we're not managing that correctly, getting people back in the fight or getting people out in good order, we're not doing ourselves a service.
Yeah, like you said, that the suicidal awareness is gigantic. You need to be working upstream. Like if blast pressure is a contributing factor, then they need to look at controlling that.
Yeah, deal with all the contributing factors, not just what you need to do when you're feeling bad. No, we need to do everything we can to ensure that we're managing all the risks and things that may potentially add to that risk.
Like footy, they've changed the rules to reduce head knocks and stuff like that. So
yeah, 100%. Like that's what we do.
Army needs to do the same thing.
Yeah, 100%.
They've always been a bit slow to adapt.
Yeah, big slow beast. But that's one of the things. Like as much as the ADF, we malign the ADF and throw stones at it and things like that. Most of us enjoyed our time working with the ADF, and we also understand that it is a big slow beast. And when we get it when we get it right, we are the ADF is extremely good, regardless of which service you're part of. It's extremely good in when it gets it right. We are very, very good at what we do.
Yeah,
it may just take us a little bit longer to get there.
Yeah, no question. It's a professional organisation. Just has a few things I need to fix.
Yeah, and hopefully those that are able to make the decisions can act quicker.
Yeah, without all the red tape and policy.
Yeah.
Cool. Good little fucking request, shout out, call out to those in power.
Yeah.
All right, cheers. Bye, guys.